you have an array of experience, and you've been so prolific on your writing, so we could really jump in anywhere. But one thing that I saw on your website, you described the surprising turns your life has taken. And I think you said its contours included a pretty disastrous foray into entrepreneurship.
Yes.
And early in your career, you were a bureaucrat and a leader of a digital transformation. And you spoke about your own transition into academia and the opportunities Columbia Business School presented. I was just wondering, just to give listeners some context, if you could talk to us a little bit about that journey and, you know, what you learned from the ups and downs that you mentioned.
Sure. So I think one of the biggest learnings is that a failure or not achieving what you thought you would like to achieve at one juncture often opens doors to many other possibilities. So I like to look at those as more as tuition and learning experiences than as failures, right? Now, that being said, you know, there are things you shouldn't fail at. You know, not working hard, not being prepared, not doing your homework. I don't think there's an excuse for that. But sometimes it's just due to no fault of your own, things don't work out. So one of the businesses I started was a political consulting business. So I was a political science major at university, and I was very interested in the whole political process and thought, wow, wouldn't it be interesting to be in that part of the world that helps politicians actually get elected. So that's what we did. And we did, back in the day, we did things like create lists of voters who are likely to vote in primary elections and, you know, general fundraising, mailing lists, stuff like that. So not very glamorous, but it was close to the action, right? And we made the kind of dumb mistake you make when you're in your 20s and you don't know any better. We sort of forgot elections don't happen every year. So we had a hugely successful first year because we were pricing as though it was a smooth trajectory, and everybody else, of course, knew that they had to price to cover the down years, and we didn't.
Yeah.
So that's an example of the kind of mistake that you make. Now, you know, nobody died; it wasn't a terrible thing. But what then happened was we started a second business, which was really based on the capabilities we'd built up doing all this typing and word processing stuff. And that looked as though it could really take off. This was, you know, back in the day before this was commonplace. And then I had one of these. So my partner had identified someone from the Small Business Association who was going to give us a loan to try to grow this thing. And I had one of those dark weekends of the soul when I said, wait a minute. I got into this in order to be close to the politics and policy making and, you know, figuring out what was going to happen. I didn't get into this to build a typing and word processing business.
No, yeah.
So I ended up turning it over to my partner, and that's when I began my more serious career working as a leader in city government's efforts to turn itself into a much more digital organization. So the twists and turns there were quite interesting, but, you know, it was tough. I mean,